Our next speaker is Thaís Bardini from Universidade Federal de Santa Catarina. He talks about embedding covering three families.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the organization for such an amazing event. And I think the protocol is to start by telling you how I met Daniel, right? I was finishing my undergrad in computer science at UC, and there was this new guy there who was visiting us on a expo, and he was teaching a finite field course. I had no idea what a finite field was, but all of my friends were enrolling in the course, so I decided to do the same. And there's only one thing that I heard from Custodio before joining the course was that Daniel could transform a very hard concept into something that was easy to understand. And that was absolutely true. After that, I joined my master's, and Daniel was still around, so he helped me together with Custodio to pick a subject, a research subject. And Daniel presented me to Lucia, which was a game changer because she ended up being my co-supervisor in my master's and my supervisor for the PhD. And during my master's, we did so many research meetings, and we ended up writing a paper together. And this was a special paper for me because it was my first paper in a journal. And after that, I moved to Ottawa to do my PhD with Lucia, and Daniel was always around. So he was in my comprehensive exam, he was part of my committee, also part of the committee in my PhD proposal. And I made sure to enroll in every single course that Daniel was offering. But here's the thing, I've already finished all the mandatory courses, so I was just doing it for fun.
Yes.
And the other thing is that I would have to cross the city to go to Carleton U to do courses. Everything called Ottawa. So I guess that maybe says a little bit about his teaching skills and why we love to watch his work. Nowadays, I'm back at UFSC, and I made sure to introduce to Daniel many of my students, especially those ones that are interested in a math that goes way beyond what I can do. It's really fun to be around Daniel. He's kind, and he's very generous with his ideas and his time. He always finds time to meet us, so thank you very much. Now, cover free families. I like to start this talk by telling you a little bit about combinatorial, which is one of the applications. Combinatorial testing started during the Second World War, where they wanted to test people for sick days, but they didn't have enough resources to test each person. So the idea was to combine blood samples and test these groups, these mixtures, instead of testing each person. And they did this in a way that the groups that passed the test, they determined all the good elements, which means that the bad ones are the remaining. So here in this example, groups 3 and 4 passed the test. So all of these guys, yellow, blue, green, orange, and purple, they're all healthy or good. So the reason why these two failed, I know it seems like magic, but it's not. It's combinatorial. And we can represent this using a binary matrix with some special properties. So columns are elements that I want to test. Rows tell me which ones I'm testing together. And the property that we are looking for is called d-cover-free. So this is a d-cover-free family with, it allows me to identify up to d bad elements with t tests and n elements. The property that we want is the following. No element should be covered by the union of any other d, especially if these d are the bad ones. All the good elements should be this one. So I'm going to show you an example here. This is a 1-CFF. So no bad element should cover the other. And let's think, for example, that element bad one. So test 1 and 2 will fail, but every other good element or key person will be in a good test. So this is a 1-CFF. I only did 4 tests to test 60. Here I have a 2-CFF. where I'm capable of identifying up to two bad elements. For instance, if 1 and 2 are bad elements, they will fail test 7, 8, and 9. They save all of the good elements. But this are any two columns that you pick. So, for example, 4 and 12, all of the good elements are in at least one good test, and so on. If you prefer a set system definition, I have one for you. We can consider columns as instance vectors of subsets of a set X, and the problem and the characteristic that we are looking for is that the union of these subsets should not cover. So this means that we have this one extra test that saves this guy from these bad guys that we have. So no element is covered by the union of any other. We have bounds, we have constructions for these objects. When d equals to 1, we know we can use finite set systems, and it's quite good because we have only log n tests as n elements. For d greater than 2, the best lower bound that we know is this one. So we need at least d squared log d times log n tests. We have several constructions that can. So we have about d squared log n tests. Many constructions, but this is a huge conference. I guess I should talk about a construction based on finite. And I'm so lucky because this is my favorite. It has so much, so many properties in it, and I'm going to show you. So in this talk, I'm going to talk a little bit of combinatorial families on cryptography. This is the main reason why I started looking at combinatorial families. Later, I'm going to show you that CFFs, the way that we know them, they do not work for dynamic applications. So we need a new definition, a new construction. And I'm going to show you how we can do that using Finite. And some applications in cryptography. There are so many, actually many more than these ones. I'm not going to go over there, but I want to show you these two here. One in digital signatures and another one in distribution. If you are interested in learning more about this, applications, constructions, bounds, there is this we just found it that has constructions, applications, generalizations, and okay, let's go to the first application, fault tolerance in aggregation. A digital signature allows us to guarantee integrity and authenticity of digital documents. So we have here. I'm going to show you a signature algorithm. So the signature algorithm will grab a digital document and it will generate this extra piece of information, which is the digital signature. Later, we can use document signature and we can verify the signature. So if the verification is successful, this means we have integrity and authenticity. If the verification is not successful, it might indicate that the document was modified in some way or we had some authenticity issues. Okay? Now imagine that we have millions of signatures to verify. It can be quite expensive. So there is this classical idea of aggregation of signatures where we grab all of the signatures and we combine them into one. And we only perform one verification. So if everything is good here, this verification will be successful. If the verification is not successful, this means that at least one of the documents was modified maybe. So what do? We verify each document individually. So millions of documents, millions of verifications. This aggregation here uses some homomorphic properties that we have in some signature schemes. Not all of them allow us to do that with some. So not really good, right? We need to test that all of them. And here's where we can use combinatorial frameworks. So instead of aggregating all signatures into one, we aggregate them using a d-CFF. Columns are the individual signatures, and the rows will tell me which ones I aggregate together. Now, instead of having all aggregates and one verification, I have T, which is D squared log N squared left. But the important thing is that when I verify those, I can precisely tell you which one is the modified document. Up to D bad documents, but I can do that instead of testing each one individually. So this idea on there's some variations in here. There's batch verification, aggregation of signatures, and started with Stinson, later in my master's thesis, Hartung, and then in my PhD studied this problem, looking at it in different ways. Now I'm going to change a little bit of, I'm going to talk about another application. Distribution. Imagine that we have a server that wants to broadcast encrypted content. For example, the final all servers should be able to decrypt this content and watch, right? So server encrypts the content. It gives a key to each one of the subscribers they are able to decrypt. But what if someone decides to stop paying for the service? Well, all active subscribers should be able to decrypt. So what the server needs to do, it will have to change the key. Here's in a light gray, not so light maybe. I don't know if it's easy to see or not, but yeah. So server needs to change the key and reshare the key with everyone because it don't want this guy to watch the image. It can be quite expensive to do this game, to play this game. So one idea is to share a different key with each. So if this guy stops paying, that's fine. I just stop encrypting with this key and I continue using the others. Problem here, if I have 1 million subscribers, I need 1 million keys. And I need to do 1 million of encryptions. It's quite a lot. And this is where we can use covert families for key distribution. Here I showed you an example in broadcast encryption, but there are many other applications related to this. And the idea is the same. We can consider columns as subscribers, rows as keys, and each subscriber will receive a subset of these keys. So if, for example, I stop paying for the service, everyone else still has a good key that can be used to encrypt. So this scheme allows me to tolerate up to D bad participants, for example. So let's take a look at in these two applications. Here I was able to aggregate 6 signatures using 4 rows. I was able to share keys with 6 participants. What if I have 7? What if I have a little bit more? Because it's a dynamic application, I cannot guess the end. So in this case, my CFF is not good enough because I can build CFFs for a given D, and if I don't know the end, what can I do? And this is where we need unbounded CFFs. We need CFFs that will grow in size as we need. And it's also important for us to have small CFFs inside of the next ones, the big ones, because then I can reuse all the aggregations that I did before, or I can reuse all the key distribution that I did. So this is what I'm looking for. There are a couple of approaches in the literature on how to do that. I will get into those in a minute, but I just want to show you how we know that a construction is a good construction. We measure that using compression ratio, which is given by number of columns divided by number of rows. Remember that I want to test a lot of elements using a few tests. So I want this number to be non-constant, and I want this number to grow over time, because this means that my number of elements is growing, but my number of tests for keys is not growing that fast. So I want compression ratio increasing. I don't want it a constant compression. So we have these approaches in the literature. The first ones to introduce this need of increasing CFFs were Hartung and some other authors in 2016. And they did that for aggregation of signatures. So they proposed what they called monotone families, monotone CFFs, where we had these 0 rows under the small matrices. Those were a requirement for the problem of aggregation of signatures. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for me, there are constraints. So the number of rows was growing too fast. We worked on that in my PhD. So they proposed monotone families. They were the first ones to introduce the problem. They had this requirement in here for the zeros here. And monotone families allow increasing n for fixed. Later, my PhD, me and Lucia, we worked on this for quite a lot. And we proposed what we call nested families. They are a bit more flexible, so we were able to get constructed with increasing compression rate. But the nice thing is that they were still applicable for aggregation signatures. So nested families and monotone families both allow increasing n for fixed a. But if we think a little bit about it, if we're increasing the number of elements that we are testing, it's natural to think that the number of bad elements will also grow, right? So the idea of embedding families here, where it can grow both n and d. And now we don't have any requirements. We're not focusing on aggregation of signatures anymore. So this may not work for aggregation of signatures, but it works for key distribution and many other applications. So I'm going to show you how to embed families using polynomials over. But before I can show you how to embed CFFs, I need to show you one classical construction of traditional d-CFFs using finite fields. This is from Erdős, Frank, and Peretti. And they say that Q be a prime power, K a positive integer. I can build a d-CFF with Q squared rows and Q to the K plus 1 columns. I'm going to show you the construction by showing you this example. So here in this example, I'm working in F3. My rows are all the combinations of tuples of elements in F3. And my columns are all polynomials over F3, but of degree at most k, this positive integer k. And the construction is pretty easy. I put a 1 here if when I evaluate this polynomial with this element 2, I get 0. If that happens, I put a 1 here, otherwise it's 0. And we have this requirement here. We need to have q greater or equal than dk plus 1. And we are evaluating each polynomial q times, so we have q1s per column. This is a 2CFF. If I transform this in the column here, I'll see that d needs to be smaller or equal than q minus 1 over k, which is 2. It doesn't look really good because I need 9 tests for 9 elements, but that's just because my k is small here. You can see that if my k grows, I have a lot of elements, and I'm going to test them with only q squared tests. So it's a good function. And the reason why this is a d-CFF is that if we pick any 2 columns, any 2 polynomials, they will be together in the same tests at most k times, because k is the degree of the polynomial. And now, if we consider the union of d columns, this union will be at most dk tests together with any other column. But recall that each column has k1s, and k needs to be dk. So this plus 1 is that extra test that is saving us. So we have the no column followed by the union. This is traditional d-CFF. And actually, this is my favorite construction. because it has a lot of structure. We don't need pulse if I'm not interested in the maximum possible d. If I want smaller d, I can take a smaller number of rows. For example, if I'm interested in a 0-CFF, I just pick the first 3 rows. If I'm interested in a 1-CFF, the first 6, and so on. So this is not normal for CFF constructions. This construction carries a lot of interesting properties. Okay, but how can we build embedding families? This is for a fixed number of columns q to the p plus 1 column. How can we do that? This is quite simple. We are going to start with fq and the small construction and grow the construction with it. So we're building is towards a finite grid. And the idea is that code is inside of the extension field. All the elements in here in fq are also part of fq squared. All the polynomials in here are also polynomials over the extension field, and all the evaluations here are the same. Rows and columns, and get what we call embedded CFFs. But remember that I want increasing n, increasing d. So let me show you a little bit more of d. Over q, and we consider a sequence of extension fields fq to the I. And since we're increasing the order of the finite field, it's d and k. So here's my increasing d that I promised you. Now, remember that the number of columns is order of the finite field to the k plus 1. I'm increasing the order, I'm increasing k, consequently, I'm also increasing n. So this gives me a sequence of CFFs with increasing n and d. In other words, an embedding. Here's a tiny example. The 2-CFF that I showed you for over F3, I have d2k1. Now if I go to F9, since the order of my finite field now is 9, I can grow d up to 4, for example, and k up to 2. And now we'll have 81,729 elements. So I have a 2-CFF embedded into a 4-CFF. And now the fun begins. We can play with the parameters to get different results. Let me show you. I always need to follow this, okay? But I could, for example, fix k and increase d to its maximum. And I'll have results like this ones, where my k is fixed 2, grow my d pretty quickly as my n grows. Still having good, basically just what it was. I can go on the opposite direction and fix d and grow k to the maximum possible that this inequality allows me. So by growing k, I'm exploding the number of columns here. This gives me an insane compression ratio. Actually, the best we could hope for, but it seems. Okay? We can go to another extreme now and fix both d and k, but fix some specific blocks of rows that will give me these zeros under the previous matrices. This is monotone families that Howard Tung and the other authors proposed. But the good thing here is that our construction has increased. So the answer is yes, we can build embedding families, and we can actually pick different parameter choices to give us different properties. And find it amazing how one traditional d-CFF construction on polynomials can be explored in so many ways. And one thing that I really like is to always look at applications. This is how I started this. We were looking at a problem in cryptography, and I really like to look at applications because they usually give us some insights in. But now I need to tell you the bad news. Let's look. I have F4, and then I go to 16. It might look good. We are testing 4,096 elements with only 208 tests. And we can allow for up to 6 bad elements with this construction. Okay? Well, now imagine that and now I have 65. I can drop the extra columns. I can ignore them. I cannot drop rows. So I would have 65 subscribers, but I need 208 keys. That's a horrible compression ratio. So compression ratio is great when I use the entire matrix. But if I don't need the entire matrix, then I have a problem. So our idea here was to do some moderate increases of DNK in order to have a more gradual increase on it. So here I'm showing you results for Q16, so F16 and F256. So if I go back here, I'll have F4. F4 with 64 elements. Now I'm showing you some gradual and how it affects the compression. I can pick K1D3 to have only 158 columns, and I can grow that all the way up to 4,000. An increase in compression ratio, all these crazy drops. But every time I change the field, I go to the extension field, I have drops on the compression ratio. They catch up later, but all of these and they can be a bit harder. This is because I have Q square rows, and 16 squared is much smaller than 256 squared, right? So my big question here, maybe an open problem, is can we have embedding families with a more gradual increase of n and a smoother compression ratio? Because here, I love the polynomial construction that prime powers and all the rules of the extension fields. Can we have another construction of embedding families that grows a little more smoothly? And some future work that me and Lucia we are working with is we are exploring other aspects of the CFFs. We are looking at structure where they're inspired by testing people in a pandemic screening. So we published this paper in Iowa, and now we are evolving a little bit the idea this year, hopefully. So that's it. In the next slide, I have a picture, and the picture has integrity issues. I will give you one chance to discover where is the modification. What's Photoshop? It's the phone, right? It's the phone. Thank you.
It's not the.
No, it's not the hats. That was there. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Is there a comment?
Absolutely. The problem there is I was thinking whether you could use some ring, finite ring. But the problem is you have these evaluations of the polynomials, and when you do some ring that kind of slowly move, but then I think when you move up on the order of the natural ring, I think you will have problems with your evaluations.
Is that like learn for rings? That's based on the fact that K point determine a polynomial given one class.
Yes, but
that's
I don't know, but there seems to be some way of growing it slowly instead of like power.
Maybe find some other type of construction that's not based on these polynomials. I don't know.
If you have one extra column, do you really need all the rows? So you could order the rows, maybe, right?
Yeah, but if you want the maximum D, which maybe.
But you have only one column, Mark, so you already know something. So maybe there is a we never thought about this, but maybe there is a structure of how to grow the rows as well.
Such a way that you really don't need to
You can
jump
accommodate
into the
one
next
more
one.
element, and it's a d-CFF with one, but I don't need
But
to
you
put all
jump a
the
little bit
others.
of the road.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what it's said.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what
that
we
makes
try to do in the graph that I showed you. We're not jumping to the maximum
Yeah.
G. We're more gradually increasing. So
Exactly, because you have your staircase and then the down.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, just
and then the staircase
using the
again.
polynomial and the
that.
points, right? That's possible.
well, an open problem.
Okay, let's thank the speaker again.